CFB Paint back for another podcast. We're going to do the preview for week 2 coming up. This might be a shorter one of our podcasts. We want to look at some of the big matchups that are coming up in this week. I think we have bigger matchups than we had in week 1. Week 1 didn't have a whole lot of premier ones. You had the South Carolina, North Carolina, LSU, FSU. Maybe name-wise Florida and Utah, although that was pretty mismatched as we saw. We've got some big ones. We'll start off with the Friday game just to make sure that we're not disregarding the games that happened earlier on in the week. This is one that's going across conferences. We've got Illinois at Kansas. Big 12 definitely needs wins at this point after what's happened in the previous week. Any thoughts or insights on the Fighting Illini going up against the Jayhawks?
I'm just excited to see it. I really want Kansas to win. Do we know when Jalen Daniels is coming back?
I haven't seen word.
And so I'm like, I really want to see him be a part of it. Although, I mean, their quarterback last week held his own, 22 for 28, 270-something yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, I just really want to see Kansas win, and I want to see them make a bowl game and be a big part of this Big 12 again. So I'm rooting hard for them. And who's the coach at Illinois again? It's
Bielema.
Yeah. I'll always root against Bielema, so it's okay. I didn't love him at Wisconsin. I'm like, well, we're not going there.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of insight on the game. Just more so like I wonder what we can expect from Illinois. They had just a really odd game against Toledo in week 1, so they made some mistakes. So I don't know if those are all going to be things that will crop up week in and week out just yet. But at Kansas, and Kansas right now is a 3.5 point favorite. I like Kansas. I think I like Kansas to cover that spread at home against the Illini. I'm right there with you, Corey. I think that they make it it's fun when Kansas is decent at football because they're not a traditional power. They have a fantastic coach. I have all the respect in the world for Lance Leipold. But Brett Bielema's had his own sort of career renaissance at Illinois, and we'll see. I think we'll kind of see what these two teams are made of because both of them played games that Kansas playing a really small opponent in Southeast Missouri State. Is that right? Missouri State, excuse me, not Southeast Missouri State.
Yeah.
Missouri State in week 1. It's hard to draw any conclusions from that. And Illinois nearly lost to Toledo with kind of some weird stuff going on in that game where Toledo did everything but win the game. And I don't know what to take from it just yet. So this is kind of a fun, and what I would say is like an evenly matched out of conference game where it's like, both these teams are probably anywhere between 5-7 and at the high water mark, maybe 8-4. And not for Corey. Corey's big on Kansas. You might have him higher than 8-4. But yeah, I think it's an evenly matched game in terms of like comparing. Okay, what does this similar tier of one conference look like compared to a similar tier of another one? But yeah, give me the Jayhawks.
For what ESPN predictor favors Illinois like 58%, which is
it's not worth anything. So
I favor the Jayhawks as well. Although I did like Luke Altmaier in his debut. I thought he was decently in control. Had some really good moments against Toledo. Overall team performance, you'd like to see a little bit better. But I'm gonna kind of just go with the home field advantage on this one. But it's two teams so evenly matched, and honestly, so we mentioned both coaches, but I think both coaches will come in as very well prepared. I think they're doing good things at those respective ball clubs. Moving into Saturday, I don't know if we want to talk much. Wake Forest, Vanderbilt. Do we think Vandy goes 3-0?
I kind of would love it, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think so. I think Wake Forest is 11.5 point favorites. I don't know. I think Mitch Griffiths is going to keep things rolling. I like Wake Forest. They don't seem to miss a beat no matter who is in or out of their lineup. So give me the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, I also see the run ending for Vanderbilt, but who knows? Maybe they'll give us an exciting game there. we'll keep things rolling along. Notre Dame has their first test of the season. It's not the biggest test in the world, but NC State, not a scrub, not a team that you can just show up and roll out any team and beat. And it's at NC State, and Raleigh's a tough place to play. We as Florida State fans know that. Thoughts on Notre Dame? Thoughts on Notre Dame's first big test of the season, or real test of the season, I should say.
I'll go ahead. I think Notre Dame's a quality team. I already kind of talked bad about Brendan Armstrong and Robert and I. So I think Notre Dame covers and beats them by 2 touchdowns.
This one to me, I don't know. I still don't think we know enough about who Notre Dame is, but we also don't know who NC State is either. I really feel like if I'm, this is me, like put my like sort of tinfoil hat on. I think that NC State UConn game was one where they were probably prepping Notre Dame a fair amount and just thinking like, oh, we're going to get by on UConn. So that's one of those week 1 results I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in. I think this is a close game. I think this comes down to the wire. But I do think there is an edge for Notre Dame at QB. And that to me is likely the difference in this game. It's like Brendan Armstrong, I think I have no complaints. If he was my quarterback, I'm happy. If Sam Hartman and him I can choose between the two of them, I'm going to go with Sam Hartman every single time. So I like Notre Dame. I think if, again, not betting this, but 7.5 is what NC State's catching at home. That seems a little much. So give me Notre Dame to win, NC State to cover. I can't wait to revisit these picks and see how bad I
am. I'm with Corey on this one, and I think NC State's a good team. They can be stout. I think they have really good linebacker play, which could play a factor here. And Notre Dame team that's really likes to establish a run. But it's always tough judging a team that you expect to be pretty good against lesser competition. But I think Notre Dame might be better than I thought they were going to be going into the season. I think Hartman's showing, I've still got all the ability to make all the throws I had before. It wasn't part of just the system with the slow mesh that they used to run at Wake Forest. Like he's got it. I think some receivers they're budding, and could be big targets in more important games like they'll have later on in the season. But give me Notre Dame, and I like them to, more than 7.5. So we'll see if that goes the way I think it will. But I think Notre Dame is, initially I was thinking of them coming to the season like somewhere between 14th to 18th best team in the country, and I think they're in the top 10 and deservedly so.
I said 8 to 12. Yeah, it was in my head. As soon as you said, like, initially I was thinking this, I was like, right now I've got them at 8 to 12. So
yeah, and that's So we'll see. They've got the schedule that will leave no doubt. We'll know exactly where they belong.
Yeah, true.
And I love that type of schedule. So we're gonna keep things rolling along. This one, I think we're all gonna be in the same place. Utah Baylor.
Yeah, have fun. You're gonna play your backup quarterback. Baylor's screwed in this game. Maybe both teams play the quarterback. Still, Baylor's screwed in this game.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me even a little bit wary about this is that the Vegas line is Baylor +6. Like, what do they know? Like, I just like it. Just feels like I can't remember what year it was. I want to say it was like 2015 or so, where the week of USC versus Utah I think was ranked in the top 5, and USC was like a fringe top 25 team. And the line opened like USC -2, and it quickly got bet over to Utah, but USC ends up winning the game by like 21 points. So I was like, I don't know if it was like a stylistic matchup that USC just had like the numbers. So that's the only thing that gives me any pause. Like my heart and my head both say, oh, you could bet your house on Utah to cover a 6-point spread, even if it's on the road. I just like I don't see it, but I'm just, again, like I said, excited to revisit this take in a week and see what disaster I've just now inflicted upon the Utah Utes. But I don't think they have any issues. Like I said on our review from last week, like they could rest as many starters as they feel like they need to and come out with victory again.
Yeah, and it turns out they don't need their starters to win games. We saw that last game.
Yeah,
So,
true.
Whatever you need, give me Utah starting off 2-0. Next game we want to look at Nebraska, Colorado. I think Colorado wins this game. ESPN might change their logo to be gold and black. It's been all that's been talked about over the last little bit, but they've earned the media at this point. It's not just talk. Beating TCU as an unranked team, and TCU's number 17 went to the playoff last year, made it to the championship game. You've earned some of that. It's blown up a little bit because of Colorado and Deion Sanders and everything that's happened there, but Nebraska didn't look good in week one. Offense didn't look threatening for most of the game. Defense did okay. Any chance for the Cornhuskers going into Boulder to come out with a victory?
I'm just saying Matt Rule's gonna have to eat some words. I feel bad for him. I'm gonna watch the game because, like, if Nebraska pulls out a win, what is gonna be said? What's gonna be talked about? That's gonna be the interesting thing to me. But even if Nebraska doesn't, I'm like, I want to watch Shedeur Sanders tear up another team potentially and see if this. Wow, I cannot remember number 12's name for the life of me.
Travis Hunter.
Thank you, Travis Hunter. See if he really is deserving of this Heisman talk. I think if you looked at the numbers, he jumped a ton for the Heisman odds over week. So,
well, if he gets 100 yards a game and an interception a game, I think he'll win it.
Yeah, not to mention he's got the biggest hype man behind him, so that's that doesn't hurt from a name recognition and just notoriety. Well, notoriety, not in a bad way, but like just someone that's able to promote you.
I did feel bad
as that kind of platform.
I did feel bad for Shiloh at the end of the game. He's like, I just want to, let you talk to my sons. This son, Shedeur, and this son, Travis Hunter. And it's like, Shiloh's on the team too.
Shades of Talladega Nights, where like the owner of the racing team's like, Ricky Bobby's been like a son to me, only better, and his son's like in the room. Like, anyway, but yeah, you don't think that Prime had this game circled the second he saw those comments from Matt Rule? If he's going to be petty with the media, he's going to be even more petty with people that actually know football. So. It's gonna be fun. Like I said on our last episode, either way this goes, like the post game press conferences, I think will be interesting. Like,
yeah, I'm almost more excited for the post game than I am the game. The game itself will be fun to watch, especially if it's competitive. I'd really like for Nebraska to keep it competitive. I just don't see that happening.
Me neither.
But the post game, that's going to be replayed over and over again. Somebody's Twitter is going to be a nightmare to open up, and I don't know whose it's going to be, but I have a hunch.
It's Matt Rule. I'm going to go out and say it. Colorado's going to win this game, and they're going to win by way more than 3.
Yeah, it's not.
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Moving on. Two teams that have immense amount of talent on the roster, underperformed last year, hoping to rectify that this year. Got Miami, Texas A&M. This one's at Miami. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, this is exciting because we talked about this all offseason, right? I feel like this game feels like a must-win for both, right? Miami's looking to get kind of establish some momentum in year 2 under Mario Cristobal. He's recruited well, but noticeably lower this year than last year, as he's got a 5-7 record from last year, kind of to answer for to high school recruits. A&M, it's can they recapture some of the magic that they had earlier in Jimbo's run, where he started to elevate, and that COVID year they nearly made the playoff. Since they've really kind of just disappointed. So are the changes that they've made good enough to not just beat, I can't even remember who they played this for, New Mexico. Good enough to beat up on lesser competition, but to actually find someone that's of a similar talent level to your team. And I'm not saying they're quite exactly the same. If you look at recruiting rankings, A&M's still out in front, but win those games where you're somewhat evenly matched, because they didn't do a whole lot of that last year. And this one, yeah, it feels like for it being an out of conference game for two teams that really don't have playoff aspirations, at least at this point, I think, on the high end, if A&M goes, lives up to their potential, they could be a playoff team. But I don't think it's realistic for A&M fans to expect that this year. So it's really interesting for it to be such a high stakes game, given where both programs kind of currently sit. But man, that one to me is appointment television. So I am excited to see it. I really don't have a strong feel for like where this one's going to go. So that's what also makes it to me even more exciting because, Miami looked really sharp. Both of these teams looked really crisp in their first games. And, coming off of a season where neither of them looked crisp against even inferior opponents, what do they do against one another? Is it still a defensive slugfest? I don't think so. I think this one's much more high scoring. Seeing the total at 49 to me is a little surprising. I expect there to be some points and explosiveness on both sides of the ball. So we'll have to see. The one thing that I might point out is Miami looked to establish the run last week. If they try and do that, I think that Texas A&M defensive line can win that battle in the run game against Miami's offensive line. I like Miami's offensive line. I think it's just, there's still some development. They're starting a true freshman, a true sophomore, and then they've got a couple of transfers in there that are, helping things out. But I think that talent from the Texas A&M defensive front has the potential to shut down the run game, and then the game could potentially get sideways on Miami if they're having to throw the ball a bunch. But I don't know. This one's exciting. I really don't have a big take on this game, except I don't expect Miami to be able to successfully run the football consistently, start to finish. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, so I had kind of similar thoughts. Like they did start to run the ball, and they tried to get the running game going, and they actually ran the ball more times than they passed it significantly more last game. But I do think I think Texas A&M is able to make this more of a one-sided game where it's sitting on Tyler Van Dyke's arm, and I'm interested to see how he does. Can he be the old Tyler Van Dyke, or is he going to be last year's Tyler Van Dyke, or Tyler Van Dyne? If you guys saw the patent that he just got recently.
Cool.
Is he already copyrighted Tyler Van Spike as well? Because that was a good moment in his career, spiking the ball with less than 3 seconds. No, I've got Texas A&M in this one. I think these are both teams that are going to be better than last year. I think it'd be hard to be worse in a lot of ways with the amount of talent you have. But exactly what Steven highlighted is these teams looked bad against bad opponents last year. And this year, they came out, they looked like they were prepared. They looked like they were all kind of not only in the same mindset, but on the same rhythm. Offenses were looking clean and moving the ball in the way that we think they should. Wegman looked good. Van Dyke looked better than last year. There's only so much you can read into a game against Miami of Ohio, right? But I am really excited for this one. I think Texas A&M wins by, let's see, they're 4-point favorite. I'd say they cover. I don't know if they win by double digits, but
I'll say A&M by 10.
Oh, okay, I'll go by 9. So not double digits. Any other thoughts on that game, or should we keep moving along?
I'm just intrigued, pumped for it.
All right, Iowa State, Iowa, one of our first rivalry games of the season. Iowa needs 26 to get up to a 25-point average for their offensive coordinator to stick around. They are favored against the Cyclones. Any thoughts on this early one between Kirk Ferentz and Matt Campbell going head-to-head again?
So I saw a tweet, and I got to go find this tweet again. It basically has, you guys know the Price is Right? It was like,
yeah.
It has the points. I'll look up
it's the Sickos committee who did it. Beautiful.
Dude,
excellent work.
Shoot me that, Steve, whenever you find it again.
I'll find it, yeah.
But I think that was hilarious, and that's really, really the only reason I'll tune in is how many more points do they need? How many more points do they need? But I told you I thought if they can just turn around, this Iowa team can be good. So let's keep it going.
Yeah, I don't have a big take on the game. Just it's always fun. I like that this one. I love rivalry week, right? That's something that I'm big on. But I do like how there are some that are this is their main rival, and it's always played toward the beginning of the season because it kind of helps it to stand out, right? This one is one that I'm not going to watch when I can watch Florida versus Georgia or Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. That weekend there's certain games that's like I'm tuning into those ones, and I don't care what happens to be in that same time slot. There are just some games that I care about more than others. So frankly, yeah, I don't care about this one as much as I do other rivalries. That's why I'm thrilled that it's always played early, because then I don't have to make that choice between this and some other traditional rivalry game that I need to see. Iowa's got Iowa State's number. Like the total is 36.5 points. Like, wow. Wow. So I don't think I've got a really good handle on where they go, but Iowa's going to win the game. So I'll take Iowa to win, but
when 20-16 is the expected score, approximately, that's what we're looking at with the line. You're not expecting fireworks, so may not be one for a casual to watch, but for real college football sickos might be a fun one. Give me Iowa.
I found a thing that's like projects how many points Iowa should score per game, how much they think. This one they project 18.
18 points. Yeah, we'll see. Cade McNamara was pretty happy with people talking trash. They played Utah State in week 1. Is that right? 24 there. So we'll
didn't do much to silence the doubters in week 1. Let's put it that way.
We're still talking about them in week 2. So we'll see how it goes. Moving on to a ranked matchup, and I think the first one that we're talking about today, one of two, we've got Ole Miss and Tulane. This one's at Tulane, so we're playing in New Orleans. Really, Tulane's chance to make a statement if they're going to be anything more than AAC champs, if they're going to start to rattle some cages. What do you think of their chances to do that against Ole Miss?
I don't think they have much of a chance, which is kind of mean to say. I know they lost that firepower. I think I actually picked them in our win draft total. Yep, I did. But I think this might be a loss. If they pull it off, I'll be happy. If they don't, it's what expected. And, Lane Kiffin that's winning is always kind of fun to hear on Twitter. So.
Yeah. I will admit I didn't watch a second of Ole Miss Mercer or Tulane South Alabama this past week. South Alabama, I think, is quietly a pretty good team in the Sun Belt. So for Tulane to take care of business and win that game by 20 points? Yeah, 20 points, 37-17. To me, it is pretty impressive. I don't know how much stock I can put into the Rebels putting up 73 against Mercer, but Jackson Dart looked, I think, better than he's ever looked in an Ole Miss uniform. So, I don't know. This one's interesting. I think this is, like you said, this is their opportunity. I'm sure the fans will show out and kind of, try and make that an intimidating environment. But I feel like Ole Miss sees a more intimidating environment about 6 times a year, so I don't think it will really faze them. Okay. What's the line is 7?
It's 6.
Oh, it's 6 in favor of Ole Miss. Like the total. The total looks appropriate given the firepower of both the offenses.
Yeah.
I think this one's a close game. I think this one's a close game. If it comes down to it, like, who do I want of these two quarterbacks? If one of them has the ball in their hands last with the opportunity to win it, I think I like Michael Pratt more than I like Jackson Dart at this stage. Maybe not long term in terms of like NFL potential, but I don't have a really strong sense of this. I guess if we're picking it and trying to just predict it, I'll say Ole Miss wins. But that one should come down to the wire and should be a fun one.
I do like the fact that Michael Pratt had only one incompletion this last week.
Dealing.
Yeah, go on, Brian. Sorry.
I'm going to take Ole Miss, and I'm going to take them to cover and win by double digits. I think there's a bigger gap in the physical tools than there would have been last year. I think this game would have been awesome to have watched last year. That Tulane team had some real playmakers. I think Ty J. Spears is a big thing that they'll be missing. who has the ability to make a play on anybody who's playing, not just the teams they play in the AAC. That said, I will put my fan cap on, and gosh, I hope Tulane beats Ole Miss. I would love for that to happen. I'd love at least score touchdowns on your first 2 drives, have that stadium rocking like crazy, and let Ole Miss start to sweat and doubt a little bit. I think that would be really fun. I hope it plays out the way Steve's saying, where it's close. But as far as predictions go, I think Ole Miss is gonna run over them and then throw this feather in their cap of the whole time. If we beat a top 25 team, that is no longer in the top 25, because that's how we judge wins against ranked opponents. It's the most silly thing in the world. Let's move on to the biggest matchup of the week. We've got Texas playing Alabama in Austin. Alabama 7-point favorites.
Tuscaloosa.
In Tuscaloosa, sorry. Alabama 7-point favorites, but without Bryce Young, who did it all for them to win last time. They really needed him to put in a real shift, and he did, and got the job done. This should be interesting. Sarkisian again going up against his former boss, and somebody who will be really familiar with his schemes. But you lose Bijan Robinson, but you add some other really significant tools. Didn't look great in week 1, but this also could be another case of looking a little bit ahead. That said, I think some of the errors were, should have just thrown it better. And that isn't like an overlooking type of error. So, interested to get your input. Will this be as close as last year? What are the real chances that Texas takes it home?
Oh, me first. Okay.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I like Texas against the spread. I'll put it that way. I feel like this is, yeah. It's hard to know what was prep work for Alabama and in some of their lack of execution in week 1 against Rice. I feel like Quinn Ewers is kind of a gamer and gets up for the big ones, and so we'll see what he's able to do in this one. I expect him to play well, and I expect them to come in with a game plan. Kool-Aid McKinstry can't cover everyone, and that's probably the biggest sort of ace card that you have as far as Texas goes. Like, yeah, you've got some good pieces in the secondary, but I think we have more in our wide receiver and tight end room. So I think it's a high scoring affair. I think it's one that, by high scoring, I guess maybe I should define that a little bit more. I expect this game to probably be played in more high scoring than last year. Let's see, what is the total? 56.5. I think I'm going to take the over on that. I think this game is probably played in the 30s. And so, yeah, I will say, yeah, I'm going to take Texas. Give me Texas to win that game. I think they'll win. I think they will do enough containing Jalen Milroe that he'll have to throw, and I think they'll do a better job covering than Middle Tennessee did last week. So, I think Texas can announce themselves as a major player this week. I think they do it.
I think we see the troubles that the assistant coaches have had against Nick Saban continue. I think Jalen Milroe, he passed the ball pretty well he only passed it 18 times, but he had some deep bombs pretty on the money. It was like, these guys were not wide open, but they were open, and he hit them pretty well in stride. So I'm excited about the throwing ability of that. If you're an Alabama fan, you got to be excited at the fact that he completed 3 touchdown passes for them. They ran for about 5.1 yards per carry against Rice. Nothing great, but nothing poor. Can they maintain that against Texas? I do agree. Steven's talking about the matchup of the wide receivers from Texas versus A&M's defensive backs. That'll be the key to this game. But I honestly expect this game to be one of those ones that we feel the clock going by quickly because Bama's going to run it. They ran it 40 times against Middle Tennessee. They're going to do the same thing. Look for it to be a 66% run game versus and 33% pass game. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the clock, and they're going to try and control it. I don't see this as a high scoring affair like Steven does. I think you maybe get like a 30-21 Bama win.
I am also on the side of a Bama win. I think the the line here is set really well, and usually they tend to be. Vegas knows what they're doing; they really want to keep their money. But I'll go Alabama to cover. The real pathway here, I think, for Texas to winning this is a couple early errors from Jalen Milroe. If you can make the fans start to go, maybe let's try Simpson. If there starts to be some, I don't know if this quarterback can get the job done, then I think you can start to get things done. So if early interception or a fumble, something you can cause, a 3-and-out and a fumble, 3-and-out and an interception, something like that. That's the pathway, but I think you got to jump on them early. They did last year, and I think they'll need to do it again. Otherwise, I think if Alabama is able to get out ahead or be on schedule, I think that run game is going to wear it all down.
Yeah, like you said, like if Texas gets ahead, Bama's reliance on the run is going to be detriment to them with this being a short clock. And I think what we talked about, this 2-score comeback, might come into play if that happens.
Very tough, very, especially with
good point. Yeah,
with the tendencies that they want to have as an offense. Move things along a little bit quickly. Oregon, Texas Tech. Anybody not have Oregon? It's another curious line.
Bodacious.
Yeah, I definitely have Oregon to cover 6.5. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'll take.
It's gonna be. I'm taking them to cover. I'm going to take the over because they might score 67 themselves. Wisconsin at Washington State. Kind of the first real test for Luke Fickell in the Wisconsin and Luke Fickell era. Washington State, one of my sweetheart teams because they're one of the teams that's left out, and I want to see them do well in this last season.
Same.
What do we see?
Well, Cam Ward beat Wisconsin once, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Oh, he did. That was me. That was rhetorical. Yes, he did. I say he beats him again.
Oh, wow.
People of Pullman, they're going to rally behind that team. Wisconsin, again, I think that they're offensively, they're going to be fine in the long term, but I think Wazoo's got something for them. I'm excited to see that one. We'll see how that one goes. Mordecai can't play the way he did against Buffalo. They won't escape with a win. So you need to see drastic improvement from the QB week over week. It's been done before. I don't think it happens here.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other side on that one. I think Wisconsin. I'm a big Phil Longo believer. I feel like he can outscore his defense if he needs to, and I think they win. I think they cover the 4.
Yeah, I think they go into Washington. They get a win. We'll see what this offense evolves into over time, but it's like that's the part of the team that I have belief has a decently high ceiling. Like they can perform really well, and that's because I've seen what Longo did previously. That's because I think Mordecai's better than he showed in week 1, and then you have one of the best running backs in the country to go with that. So give me Wisconsin. Give me them to cover. I don't think these teams are going to make the 54.5 point total. So I would take the under on that. I think it'll be a little bit low scoring, but Wisconsin getting the win against Washington State. Any other thoughts on that one?
I take the over on that one.
There we go. We'll see how it shakes out. Oklahoma State, Arizona State. Oklahoma State 3.5 point favorites playing in Arizona. I think this is a easy one.
Oh, I'm interested in your thoughts.
Oklahoma State.
I do. I think Arizona State looked real shaky against SUU, and SUU is not a very good team. And Rashada is still a freshman. He's got talent, but I think Oklahoma State covers him quite easily.
I felt like Arizona State looked so good at the first part until they had the delay of game, and then that's when everything kind of went. And that's why I'm picking Arizona State to win this game outright.
All right.
No, I'm right there with Brian. We are still following along the exact same lines that we always do, apparently, where Brian and I are on the same page, and Corey's the one taking
Corey's the one who's right.
Different approach.
This time, though, it's been Brian's on my side a lot, which I was like, oh, I feel bad for Steve.
No, it's fine. That's fine. This one I think is an Oklahoma State victory, and I don't think it's 3.5 points. I think it's well over that.
I just want to see Jaden Rashada throw a stamp up put a bunch of touchdowns on the board, and UF goal.
Yeah, it's tough to let that one slip for reasons of promising things that you can't deliver.
Yeah, $13.5 million to one QB is probably less than they're going to have to pay the buyout for Billy Napier. So,
well,
I'm just kidding.
And they still gotta make sure Lagway comes in the door. So
that's true too. Yeah.
There's time for that.
Wait till Lagway sign and then fire Billy.
It's gonna stack.
Yeah,
you can be like, no, you can't get out of your signed letter of intent. Billy's fired December 8th after all that class is through.
He hits the portal while it's still open.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, I would expect there'll be a team or two that is really big and has a lot of money that says to DJ late in the season, hey, I know you're committed and you want to be a Gator, but there's some opportunity here. What do you think?
Southern
depending
Cal.
on how, that's the one I'm thinking of. Depending on how.
I would have said Clemson, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. If he's going to take those calls,
may not have as much to sell there. Yeah, if Florida hasn't had as good a season, maybe entertain that offer. The last game we want to preview, and this is more throwing it on for kicks because of last year's epic game, Appalachian State, UNC. This one played at UNC. I think these teams are a bit different, but Steve, why don't you tell us how you think it's going to unfold?
UNC's defense will get off the bus. It will, it will show up at the stadium, which it didn't last year.
They will dress in pads and walk out.
That's right. They will field 11 men on every play, then 11 capable men, people that will tackle and cover to a certain extent. I think UNC is going to win this game. I feel pretty confident about that. I was confident last year, but things got wild. It's fun to think back on that game where there was just these wild runs where I think at one point North Carolina's up 14 and they go from up 14 to down 7 and then they come roaring back, and I think what was the final, 63-62?
It was
I think it was 66-63.
Okay, yeah, it was. Yeah, I knew it was like 120 plus points played in the game, or points scored in the game. So I don't expect the same amount of fireworks, and certainly not as evenly distributed across the two teams. So I think North Carolina is going to win. But man, that was a fun game last year, wasn't it?
App State won, correct?
App State got Texas A&M, but they lost to UNC.
No, they lost to UNC.
Okay.
Yeah, back-to-back weeks had incredible games.
Yeah.
And didn't make a bowl. Did you guys realize that? They did not make a bowl last year.
No, I didn't know that.
They struggled on some games.
After playing two Power 5 teams, basically like in the aggregate over those two to like a stalemate, basically. Mm-hmm. It was the Sun Belt that doomed them, not the ACC, not the SEC.
Well,
I take UNC by 20. They're looking for revenge. That defensive line is 10 times better. They're going to be able to stop the run, make App State one-sided, and they'll be in position to be successful there. Because then they can release those linebackers that they have there.
Yeah, give me UNC big.
And I'm going to say 6 more sacks.
Everyone loves more sacks.
Not unlikely. I should say it is unlikely. 6 sacks is a lot to have in a game, but you can definitely see it coming with the way that they attacked the quarterback last game. Obviously, this one's kind of thrown here for fun. I would love a game just like last year. So please, Appalachian State, give it to me, but give me UNC big. Those are the games we're previewing for this upcoming Saturday. Obviously, there's a lot more college football that will be played, but kind of wanted to highlight some of the bigger ones. And we've got some really good ranked matchups, the big one being that Alabama-Texas one, so we've got more playoff implications on the line. We're obviously looking all the way towards the end of the season. We're only in week 2, but hey, that's where the goals of this Texas and Alabama teams are, so that's where we're headed. Any last thoughts or final input before we close this preview?
Ready for the next week.
Ready for the next week. One more I wanted to touch on. Troy taking on Kansas State. Chance for Troy to really make a statement.
Troy, not an easy out.
Not an easy out. Defense travels. Game is in Manhattan. I don't think they get it done, but I think that game is way closer than 16.5.
Is that the line?
16.5 for Kansas State. I think Troy. You could, again. It'll be fun to watch how wrong every single one of my choices is on this, and we'll recap it just for this week. It'll be exhausting to do that throughout a full season, documenting all my losses. But maybe for 1 week we'll do it. But yes, I think Troy covers that 16.5 point spread.
All
So
right.
that one could get. That's an early game, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, noon Eastern, in Manhattan on FS1. That one's one if you're looking for a little bit of entertainment. If the Notre Dame game doesn't end up being close, and we already know kind of how Utah Baylor is going to go, that might be the one you have to flip to. To get a little action, I guess, in that noon window. But you also have Nebraska, Colorado. Wow, that noon slate is really good. Like
It
that
is
noon
not
slate is,
bad.
it's there's some juiciness to that. All right. Anyway, I've talked enough.
Yeah, I'll take the other side of that and say Kansas State blows them out. By blows them out, I mean covers. So I think that would constitute a blowout. We'll see.
I think that running back
I
tandem that they have is amazing there, so I'm excited to see how they go.
yeah, and I think I don't know. Yeah, give me Kansas State to cover. But a game that certainly has potential for some. Oh, what's the score right there? Let me flip over. You always have those games that pop up you were not expecting. We'll put that one on your radar just to check the score and see if it's worth flipping to in between the other games you're watching during that same slate. That's gonna be it for our week 2 preview. Thanks for joining. Make sure to rate us 5 stars, like, subscribe, whatever you're doing, whichever platform you're on. Let our friends know about. Let your friends know about us, and we'll keep you locked in throughout the season. And come back and revisit this week and see how we did. Peace.